Greetings and welcome to episode 148 of the Words About Gamescast, the weekly video game podcast for words about games. I'm your host, Amy Alexander. I'm joined this week, of course, by Keith Robinson. Hi, Keith.
Hello.
I haven't seen you for a little while. I feel like we needed some time apart after we spent 48 hours in hell.
No. Heck.
Heck. People keep asking me how it went, and I'm going to get into it. It is the first topic of the podcast. But it is one of those things where it's like, how'd it go? Well, on the one hand, we raised a bunch of money. On the other hand, everything was wrong, and it was a nightmare. But we'll talk about that. We've got a very interesting story to tell. We've got some things to talk about. Games industry. We've got some things to talk about. One of the things we're not going to talk about is Pokemon Sword and Shield, which we definitely saw was a thing. But when I was sitting down and I was going, let's talk about these five things this week, I was like, I've never played Pokemon before. Keith's never played Pokemon before. I'm super excited to be able to be playing my first ever main series Pokemon game. But that doesn't really get I watched the 7-minute reveal and I was like, cool. And I'm not sure we can stretch cool out to an entire topic on this podcast. I mean, we certainly could try, but
I'm sure we could, but let's not.
I feel like it would just be me sitting here with a thesaurus on my iPad just looking up synonyms.
So let's meander through hecking into the heart of darkness.
Through hecking into the heart of darkness. I mean, that's an accurate summary of the first two things that we're going to talk about. We are starting with the charity live stream that almost fell apart at every turn, despite the fact that whenever I say we're going to talk about something like the charity live stream first, or Bowsette first, I always precondition it with, unless something majorly catastrophic happens, it's just somewhere in the video game industry. And then I put this in, and then something majorly catastrophic happened in the video game industry, and I was tested. And I was like, no, we're still going to do the charity thing first, because let's start with positivity, and then we'll just have the thing, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll never talk about it again. And then we'll talk about some other stuff. Keith, we did a charity live stream on last week, Monday to Wednesday, for 48 hours. We made it all the way to the end. Just as before we get into the details of it, how would you summarise how that charity live stream went?
All right. There were some minor snafus, but from my perspective, it went pretty well.
From your perspective, it went pretty well.
I know things didn't go pretty well.
You've seen, what would be a good movie to summarize here? You've seen Star Trek Beyond, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first bit of the movie, the awesome bit of the movie where they go through the nebula and they're on the other side, and then the ship's coming at them, and they're like, what the hell is this? And then it's red alert, and then there's thousands of ships, and the Enterprise is just getting slowly wrecked. That was basically the live stream. We got a story to tell about this live stream. But first, we raised £448.75, including gift aid, for the charity special effect, which is fucking awesome because, money for a great cause. I got a nice tweet from Special Effect, I got a nice email from Special Effect, and I got a nice postcard from Special Effect. It says thank you, and it's got pictures of all of the people that they've helped on it. And it's got some stuff inside as well, where it says, Amy, wow! And then there's the thing that they've printed. And then it says, absolutely incredible, at 105k now and still going up. With all our love, thanks from Team SE. And then there's a little smiley face next to it.
Aww.
Which I thought was really nice. So I'm gonna oh shit, I've just dropped it. So I'm gonna integrate that into the shelving unit. Behind which you can now see, because I took the opportunity when I got back and everything was just all over the place because I'd taken it all out to rearrange things slightly. those magic card boxes behind me are actually full of dice, not magic cards. Go figure.
That's a lot of dice.
I have a lot of dice. I want to give a quick shout out to our supporters, the people who donated. There was one anonymous donation. There were actually two, but one of these people donated anonymously by accident and didn't mean to donate anonymously by accident. And there was also someone who didn't donate anonymously but wanted to donate anonymously. So I'm going to skip over their name when I read through this. But our supporters included two very generous anonymous people, and also Phil Allen, Avril White, Jennifer McGinn, Michael Waring, Steve Rushby, Russell Lydon, who was there on the thing itself, Susie Wixie, Till Fair, Matt Russell, Kirsty Nash, Tom Cusick, Jack Jordan, and Daffin Moody. I think it's Daffin. It's Daffin. It looks Welsh, and I struggle with Welsh pronunciations because like C's can be T's and.
The reason that I laughed, I wasn't at the name, it was me realising who the anonymous donation was by looking at the names and realising which one was missing from that list.
Yes. Yes. Hello. We value you just as much as we value everybody else. Also, from that list, extra special shout out to Avril Wright, who basically took the role of our chatbot over the course of the 48 hours because the chatbot malfunctioned at the last possible minute just before we were starting streaming and was not repaired throughout the stream. So she was constantly in chat, moderating, chatting away, keeping our spirits up, dropping donation links in chat and all sorts of stuff. So a second special shout out to her for being awesome. And should we tell the story of the charity live stream?
Tell us the story.
I mean, we were both there. Well, this first bit, you obviously hadn't arrived yet. Things had started going wrong before Keith had even turned up. So obviously the whole the chatbot didn't work, that was the least of our problems. The reason it didn't get fixed wasn't because I couldn't fix it, but because other things demanded my attention. So we'll start on the Monday, upon awaking. And obviously at this point, I've still got some videos to do. I've still got a Crackdown 3 video that needs uploading, and there was a video that needed editing because I wanted to make sure that the YouTube channel still had all its content while we were doing our live stream. So I dismantled everything and then we took it to Russell's. I was in his car, he was driving.
He went to the walk-in centre to get his ear checked out.
Yeah, so when we got to Russell's house, he was like, "Oh, I've got a problem with my ears," and I was like, "Oh, what's the problem?" Just thinking he'd been at a convention over the weekend and maybe it was really loud and his hearing was a little bit fuzzy, and he says to me, "No, I've got about 50% hearing in one ear and about 10% hearing in the other." And I was like, "Well, that's not good. That's not a small issue. That's a problem." "Yeah, it is, yeah. I was thinking about going to the walk-in centre after the stream," he says to me. And I said, Go now. We've got 8 hours, but T-minus 8 hours at this point. And I was like, go now. Go now. Because if you go deaf during the live stream, I'm liable for that? No, I'm not liable for that. But, I would feel responsible, if he went deaf while we were playing games. So he went to the walk-in centre and I set about sort of setting everything up. It was at this point that I saw the tweet, which was, "It was the hottest day in February in the UK in recorded history." Now, Keith, we typically don't do our charity live streams this early in the year. Would you like to tell everybody exactly what I said last July when I set the rough date for February?
You said, let's do it in the middle of winter next time because this is too darn hot.
Yeah, I said...
Darn may be a replacement word.
Darn was a replacement word for several other words as we slowly melted into goo on the floor. Yes, the last time we did this was in the middle of summer. It was a horrific mistake that I did not want to repeat. So I was like, let's do it when nature is at its coldest, or at least as close to its coldest as we could get it. So we set the date months in advance. We rock up to do this live stream thinking it'll be nice and cool, and it is literally the hottest day in February in recorded history. Until the next day, which was then the hottest day in February in recorded history. So basically we were doing this.
And cut to the weekend, when we're recording this, and it's raining down, and we're supposed to get sleet, and Storm Freya is battering the south of the country.
Like, if we do this again, I think we're doing this in around about September time. I haven't nailed down any dates, because obviously it's fucking miles away. There's an E3 and all sorts of stuff to get through before then. And there's a heat wave. I think we can accurately predict the weather based on when we do these charity live streams. So that was...
So book your holidays for when we announce.
Yeah. So at this point, it's really warm. I'm in the room, and I'm setting up stuff. Like, I've laid out all the stuff, and then I'm just putting the wires in. And contrary to what Keith actually saw the finished product, the wire management was actually quite tidy at this point. Actually, it was very warm. Russ went from... I should only be about an hour to being away for about 4 hours. But again, not a big deal. We've got plenty of time. Setting up isn't normally complicated. So I set everything up. All the wires are in place. And literally nothing actually worked the first time I turned stuff on. So the way you're seeing this podcast right now with the lovely banner around it and everything, we record that in OBS live. Like, everything, it's just basically an overlay over Discord in the OBS thing. I could literally turn that off right now. Like, click, there you go, everything's black. It says activate Windows in the bottom corner because I put a new motherboard in my computer and it went, no, this isn't the same computer, but I digress. The background's back now. So, it was a black screen. Nothing was happening. At the same time, I was trying to set up Steam Share on Russell's Steam account so that we could play the games. And he couldn't remember his password. Like, he kept giving me passwords and they were wrong. So both of these things were happening all at once. What should have taken an hour, maybe an hour and a half, took 5 hours. It took me 5 hours to get the thing to the point where we could do a live stream. Now, I mentioned earlier I was doing videos in the morning, so I had gotten up about 8 a.m., which is quite early when you're going to be pulling an all-nighter. And I had figured I'll set everything up at Russell's, plenty of time to spare, and I'll go and get some sleep. By the time we were finished and everything was in working order, I had 1 hour, maybe, an hour and a half. You'd arrived at this point, and the wire management had gone from carefully placing everything to just fucking plugging it anywhere. As long as it fucking
that
works.
won't come to haunt us at any point.
That never came back to haunt us throughout this entire live stream, no. And this room that we were in was quite warm.
Yeah. The reason being that Russell forgot to turn the heating off.
I mean, I was going to get to that, but yes, spoiler alert, the heating was on. So I couldn't get any sleep before the stream started, essentially. So I had front-loaded. The worst part of me not being able to get any sleep before the stream started was I had front-loaded like my longest stint into the front, because I was like, I don't want anyone else to have to start, like, be awake, start, and then go through. So I was like, I'll do that. And I regretted that quite dramatically. Basically, by the time my first shift had ended, I had been awake for 22 hours. Keep that figure in mind. It's going to come into play in a bit. But we discovered another problem after everybody had dispersed and I was by myself playing Resident Evil 2, I think, alone after midnight. Keith, you had an interesting situation with your sleeping arrangement.
Yeah, I did. Both the airbeds that Russell owned were missing the valves, which meant that if you pumped air into them, the air would just come straight out. And in testament to how tired Amy was, Amy didn't realise that Russell came down, removed 2 sets of sofa cushions, walked out of the room, came back 2 minutes later to remove the other 2 so that I could lie on them in his hobby room.
So Keith had gone from not like having an airbed, like I'll have an airbed, it's fine, like because an airbed's a bed, it's still pretty comfy too. Literally 2 sofa cushions placed on the floor. And I never actually looked as, like, I don't know whether I just didn't want to see it or not, but I never actually looked at this sleeping arrangement. But I picture it in my head as being, that can't be good. But yes, you're absolutely right. I had a sofa face everything like that, and then there was another sofa to my right, and I was playing Resident Evil 2. It literally came into the room and removed the sofa cushions from pretty much right next to me. And I didn't notice. A few hours later, I was talking to Stu in chat, and I looked across at the sofa, and I went, holy fuck, the sofa cushions have gone.
The fact that he walked behind the monitor that you're looking at 4 times without you twigging.
I vaguely remember him saying something to me, and I kind of agreed and nodded, and I was like, yeah, sure, cool, yeah. But, like, obviously I was really tired by this point. And it was like, you know, trombones. It was like, yeah, sure, cool, whatever. So yeah, then obviously we move into Tuesday, and that was a day that was even hotter than Monday. And it was strangely really hot in this room that we were recording in, like, compared to the rest of the house, and also outside.
Yeah, and I put a drink on the windowsill, and I reached over the windowsill, and I felt the mat that I'd put the drink on. It's like, that's really hot. And then I put my hand over the radiator, which was directly underneath the windowsill, and realised that the heating was going full blast.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the live stream VOD. I haven't looked back through it, but somewhere in the live stream VOD, I'm sat on the sofa, and all you hear is Keith off camera just go, is the heating on? And I literally just look up and go, the fuck? Like, I just look across, like, the heating's on. Yeah, the heating's on. Because I'd walked in to a wall of heat.
Yeah.
And I was like, you were just sat in the middle of this room, just like, fucking, like, fuck. And it was like, you walk in and you go, fuck me, it's so hot in here.
Yeah, it was like the thermostat is in a different room, and it's one of those ones where it's like the thermostat and the thermometer's in the same thing. Like, the rest of the house, it was trying to keep that like house at the uniform temperature.
And like the doors are always open because of cats and stuff, so it was like it was working against itself in the rest of the house, but in our room because doors were closed and windows were open at this point because we just gave up on like, yeah, we need to have the windows open, otherwise someone's going to die on this live stream. Yeah, amazingly, once we actually like turned the fucking heating off, we got the room to quite a nice temperature. But for a while there, it was pretty bad. But that was later on Tuesday. Let's talk about Tuesday morning. So 6 o'clock in the morning rolls around, and Russell comes down and he relieves me. He's got a short 4-hour blast before he's relieved again by himself by Keith. And then I've got like this nice long sort of 10-hour-ish break to get like a full night's sleep. So I can rest and recharge. So even though like I've been up and I didn't get the sleep I was expecting on the day before, like I can rest and recharge my batteries and be good, like ready to rock, good to go for like the rest of the stream, because I've got other breaks as well, not just that one. And then well, let's just my head hit the pillow at about 6:15, and I the next thing I remember, like I must have just fallen straight asleep. It's 7 a.m. and Russell is standing over the bed. I haven't heard him knock. I haven't heard him come in, and he's just saying my name over and over again. And he's saying other things, but I'm not really making them out at first because I'm like sprawled. I've got like. Let me to set the scene. I'm on my side, and I have grabbed one of his hilariously oversized pillows and I'm using it as a body pillow somehow in my sleep, and I'm like, he's standing over me, and then I finally understand what he's saying. The stream's not working, And, like, I'd had nightmares about this, like, the stream not working when I wasn't around. And I was like, so naturally, as soon as he said that, that was it. Like, clam, adrenaline, boom, I'm up. I'm okay, I'm coming. I just need to get out. I just need to put some pants on. Like, so I come down the stairs like fucking shot. Like, I just balled straight down. And so the stream's still running. And he hadn't used the Be Right Back screen. And apparently, Paul of the Average Joe Otakus had tuned in at this point to see basically an empty sofa in the corner of the screen and the Elgato symbol in the middle, which just said no signal. Which he told me when I jumped into one of his streams, which I found amusing because, like, at this point I was just openly telling everyone, like, this stream had gone disastrously wrong. And bearing in mind, we haven't even hit 12 hours yet. Out of 48. So I'm fiddling about and doing stuff and plugging and unplugging and as we quickly come to the realization, poor Russell sat on the sofa just trying to manage this live stream while I'm trying to do my best Scotty impression behind the scenes. Like, occasionally you can see my arm, and then the Elgato's dead. It's dead. It doesn't work anymore. Like, it works as a pass-through, but it doesn't transmit data to the computer to then put up on the screen the gameplay that it's seeing. And this is bad because the entire, like, stream is built around this Elgato. And I've had an hour's sleep in 24 hours, and I might have had a meltdown, but I was still with it enough. And you'll see on the live stream my hand just reach across onto camera and just hit the front of the microphone, which is where the mute button is. And then there's silence for like a minute as Russell's just sitting there looking like... Because I'm just having a full-on meltdown. Like, it was fucked. And at this point, like, the only thing that was going through my head was, we are screwed. So Russell at this point realizes I'm about as useful as a chocolate teacup. And we're like, okay, well, what have we got on this PC? This PC being my PC. The only purpose of this PC this week, and this, like, 40 hours, is to transmit video and audio to the internet. I.e., it doesn't really have any games installed on it. Apart from what I was playing right before I came across. So of the choices of the 3 games that we had available, and also staring down the barrel of only having 3 games for the next 36 hours, Russell just says, I'll play until the end of my stint. Keith will come downstairs, he'll take over. Monster Prom was installed on the PC, so luckily, like, Keith likes Monster Prom a lot. He can play that, and we will figure out what to do. So I went away. I couldn't get any sleep, obviously. And then you came down, you took over the stream. We kind of sort of explained the situation to you, where it was like, you have to play this. Everything's fine. We're just going to leave for a little while.
They left me.
We literally had to leave. We found an Elgato, a replacement Elgato that we could buy. Russell was incredibly, like, he was the saviour of the charity stream at that point, because he was willing to go and buy this Elgato. Like, if he hadn't, I don't know what would have happened. So he goes, he buys it. So there's one in the entire region that we are currently in. Like, the next nearest place we could go to get one is about 50 miles away. But there's one at a shopping. So, naturally, we're blasting up the motorway to this shopping centre, power walking through it, like, to get to this thing. And the entire time I've got the stream up on my phone, and I'm just looking at it, and I'm not in it to enjoy it. I'm not even in it to see what's going on. I am literally on my phone in the car going to the game shop, just praying to anyone who is listening, please don't die. Because I trust Keith to run a live stream, but if something had gone wrong, I don't know that I could have talked him through how to fix it remotely. With the way, like, both with your technical expertise, I hope you don't mind me saying that, and also, like, the way that it's set up. Like, we didn't use the PS4 at all for the 48 hours because I was terrified that if I plugged it into the Elgato, something would explode. That's hyperbole. I just thought it would break. But you get my point. It's just like,
Yeah.
at a certain point, it's just like, if we don't touch it and we don't look at it, like, it'll be fine. So we come back from this thing. Like, the guy at the game shop is, like, very bemused. We did explain the entire situation to him, where we were like, we need this, like, because there was an empty box, and we took it to the counter, and we were like, we need this, like, we need, like, we were both, like, panicky, like, we need this, like, it says you have one, and we need it, we're doing a charity live stream right now, and the Elgato's died, and I think I showed him, like, you playing Monster Prom on the stream, like, we need this, because this is what's happening. If you don't give us this, we're going to have to play this game for the next fucking 36 hours. And I might actually have gotten the achievement for seeing literally everything in the game, but beyond that, I don't see it being a net positive. So he comes back out, he's got one. I literally almost broke down in tears and hugged the man who didn't really understand. I think he didn't really get how much we had riding on this. Until that moment where he came back out with one, because we were just watching the door he'd walked into, and then when he came back out, it was like, we both looked, and I just went, he's got one! Oh, thank God, he's got one! Also, weirdly enough, they had special effect pins, like, you could buy for £1, but we didn't have any change. So when we got that, we got back. Keith continued to do his best nothing to see here impression while I was like plugging shit in, and he's literally sat in front of this computer trying to play a Monster Prom while the screen's going off and it's coming back on, and this is happening and this is going, and like I'm like fucking cursing and plugging this wire into that wire, and it worked pretty much instantaneously, which was nice.
Yeah.
It did.
It was plug and play.
It did fail once, sort of, but I have a feeling it just needed resetting, because like from that point to the next point it stopped working was like 30 hours later. So I have a feeling it was just like, look dude, like just turn me off and on again, just flush the cache. And I was like, we did that, we got that. I couldn't really form sentences. I managed to get another 2 hours of sleep. I don't even remember what time we finally managed to fix everything. But I think I went at about 1 or 2 p.m. and I was back for about 4. And somehow I did actually wake up, and when I came downstairs, that was when it was like, the heating's on. Holy fucking shit. Like, 'cause I walked in with a bowl of ice cream, just like, do you, and I was being like, holy fuck, it's really hot in here. Do you want me to get you anything? Because you had just been sat in this room for hours.
I think that was that one I did the Titanfall campaign.
You did the Titanfall campaign.
Sorry.
In one sitting. So we did that. Like, everything was more or less smooth sailing from that point on. Like, everything, like when the Elgato died, the only thing that would have been worse than the Elgato dying was the entire stream going down or the internet going down. So once you hit that wall of the Elgato dies, and it's something that you need to fix. Anything else that goes wrong doesn't feel quite as bad. Like, we had an issue with the VR stream where we had a second microphone set up so that, you know, the person's playing Beat Saber or whatever it is. Arizona Sunshine was the other one. And there was a microphone pointed at them so you could hear what they were saying rather than what the couch was saying. Unfortunately, that microphone just stopped. Like, it was working fine when we were testing stuff and we were setting up, and then as soon as it works fine. Like, how do I describe this? It disappeared from the computer, like as an option to select use this microphone. It was just gone. Like, we'd been using it and then it wasn't there anymore. So Keith and I had to sit on the sofa for 4 hours trying to provide colour commentary. And we basically...
I'll admit, it was kind of fun, especially watching a set up the VR area, and then watching them play Angelic Voices or something.
Arizona Sunshine. The zombie.
No, Angelic Voices was one of the songs on Beat Saber.
Oh, the Beat Saber song. I mean, yeah, I got quite like invested.
You had target fixation with the League of Legends
League
song.
of Legends song.
Like, I will get this song done.
No, I can do it. Like, I understand the beat. I mean, for the first like 40 minutes of that, it was Ross playing Beat Saber, and like there was a setting that hadn't been checked on the Vive headset, like display thing, which meant that I could send sound to his headphones or the stream. So for 40 minutes, he was playing me songs in silence while the stream could hear everything, and I could hear everything, but he couldn't hear a damn thing. So like. Fair play at Russell for like doing a really good Beat Saber thing, despite how awkward it must have been for him to just be like doing this game but not being able to hear anything, just doing it in silence basically. But I managed to fix that. Thank fuck. Also bless Keith, who was supposed to be resting while the VR section was happening, for actually staying on the couch and like chatting while. We didn't really have an option like for that. Then after you did your thing and I got up at like 4 a.m. to take over from you and ended up playing Resident Evil a bunch more, like I realised that sofas don't really have armrests. My arms hurt quite significantly. We need to fix this next time. And then we got trolled. Like,
yeah.
A bunch of trolls turned up. And I said this on Twitter. I was like trolls happen on Twitch because Twitch, it's like, that's just the thing. Who the fuck trolls a charity stream? Like, that's just...
We had a couple of incidents over the thing, like the people that thought you were Russell's mother.
Oh, yeah.
There was someone that turned up and started asking me questions about, like, my hair and my face and just random personal questions.
Yeah, just like, you know, like, I think someone asked me if I was pregnant and I was like, dude, what? No, fuck off. No, these are like full on, like, racial slurs were being thrown about in chat, and all sorts. And it was just the thing that just left the impression of who the fuck draws a charity stream? Like, seriously, like, just come back when we're not streaming a charity event. Like, seriously. But apparently not. And then, just as we think everything's fine, the Elgato died at one point. I've already done that bit. Then we're getting into the last few hours. We're setting up Euro Truck Simulator 2 blindfolded, which was hilarious. Where basically Russ wore some glasses that he couldn't see through, and
Russell decided to go. Oh, so it was going to be Edinburgh to London. Decided to start off in Cologne.
Yeah, I want to do Edinburgh to London and started in Germany. But yeah, it was great. Like, I want to try and cut that bit out and just put it as a video somewhere because it was so funny. He was blindfolded. We were like guiding him.
Yeah.
Like, we had to take over a couple of controls, like camera, and there was something called differential lock, which we apparently just turn on and off at times because it helped
we kept going
make the truck move when we drove off the road, which was frequently. But before that, I'd been doing a bit of streaming with you, Keith, and then I was like, okay, we're going to set up for Euro Truck Simulator. Cool. I'm going to leave the room and go and get a drink. And from my perspective, what happened was I'm outside the room, and I pull my phone out and I go, I'm just going to see what the guys are up to. Like, I'll see if there's anyone in chat. So I think Avril might have been there at that point, and I'll interact with chat. And I opened the stream up on my phone, and I don't remember what you said specifically, but you said something, and then the screen went black. And just as the screen went black and I'm looking at my phone, and you've got to remember, my senses are dead because I've had about 7 hours sleep in 48 hours. And just as I'm doing that, and I don't really react to it at all, and then the door opens, and I look up from my phone, and he's standing in front of me. And he just goes, Russell has just unplugged the PC that's running the stream because he was moving it to get the keyboard closer to the seat. So and I just looked down at the phone and I looked up and I just went, that explains one or two things.
Yeah, it But Russell did need to move the keyboard because the keyboard, you could only use the one that would need to use for Euro Truck by resting it on the floor in front of his feet. So instead of someone blindfolded, he'd just be staring at the floor bent over. Unfortunately, the way all the wires and stuff were, when he moved the PC, the power cable out the streaming PC. Yeah. And I believe, I can't be sure, but the last word from here was like, be careful. Or something along those lines.
And then the stream just went, it's like, oh, fuck. So I was obviously in chat like, no, we haven't gone, don't worry, we're fine. We're just plugging the PC back in. Like it's fine.
It's not a bad one, it's still good.
It's still good. The stream is still on track. Like, we made it to 48 hours. I don't know how the fuck we did that, but we did it. What a fucking 2-3 days though, like, to just experience. We had 2 charity streams before this that basically nothing bad happened. Like, everything was really fine and easy. And I feel like all we did was we just paid that bad karma forward. And then the comic gods just went, ha 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 ha, and then they just dumped it all on us in this one stream.
Yeah, strike down the Elgato.
We did it though.
Yeah.
Not like, despite everything, we made it to 48 hours.
Yeah.
I am still recovering, like, sleep-wise. I don't know about you, because I know you've been having some insomnia problems and stuff, so.
Yeah, someone in my house has a chest infection, so I've kept up my coughing at the moment.
Like, it's crazy. Like, I thought 48 hours, while obviously longer, would be easier because we weren't doing the full thing. Like, instead of doing a full 24 hours from start to finish, all 3 of us. Because we had breaks and rests and whatnot in between. I thought it might be easier on us. And I don't know, like, I think it's harder on us in the long run. Shout out to everybody who was in chat, who came, who lurked. We had a lot of lurkers. And the new people who came to watch. We got a couple of followers out of it. To the people who donated, just everybody, like, it was a once in a life. Like, although we're going to do more charity streams in the future, and we've done charity streams in the past, I feel like this one was a once in a lifetime experience. And there are many things that happened that over those 3 days that I'm never going to forget for the rest of my life. And one of them is just the look on Keith's face where he doesn't know whether I'm going to cry or laugh or just collapse when he says, Russell's unplugged the PC. Because there's that long pause where I'm just like formulating the news in my head of just like, uh-huh.
It was that running joke you had, which is, so the stream's going to be running for 3 hours now, that just leads to another...
Yeah, the clock ended up getting reset a few times because we had to turn the stream on and off. What a great one. Our next one will be sometime later this year. Details will follow when we have them. Let's recover from this one first, and then we'll start thinking about the next one. I've got some ideas to make it a bit smoother for us personally. One is don't let Russell touch anything. He didn't like the suggestion, even though every time he touched something, it then generally started to break. Shall we move on? I'd rather not. I'm sure you'd rather not. So while we were doing all this, the games industry still was a thing, and it still happened. Like, we had news events and reveals and, you know, enough to...
Announcements of Pokemon games.
And THQ Nordic holding an AMA on an image board known for child porn. Words I never thought I would utter on our Words About Gamescast. There are genuinely days where I sit down to write these show notes and I think to myself, this is supposed to be about video games. Like, this industry should not be as complicated as it is. It's about games. But anyway, I've pulled this from many, many sources. The bulk of the text that I'm about to read is from Rebecca Valentine over at gamesindustry.biz, who writes, on Tuesday, publisher THQ Nordic opted to host an Ask Me Anything, which is AMA, session to offer its audience an opportunity to have questions about its business and games answered. This would be utterly unremarkable had it not opted to host said AMA on 8chan, an image board known for NSFW content of all kinds, including hate speech, child pornography, harassment, and abuse. On Twitter, THQ Nordic announced the AMA and then about 30 minutes later offered a follow-up tweet after receiving a wave of criticism for the AMA on social media. The two tweets were, number one, we're doing an 8chan AMA and we have no idea why, come join us, with a link. And the second one, just wait. I mean, I know you've already read it, so you know everything, but I mean, it goes downhill very quickly from here. The second tweet was, in defense of it, the opportunity was here and we took it. We got approached in a very friendly and polite manner and were assured said person, shout out to Mark, which has become a meme, we'll take care of the nasty stuff. So here we are. Now, those are the two quotes. 45 minutes into the AMA itself, and in addition to various questions and requests for a new Destroy All Humans, the discussion is full of suggestive and outright pornographic images, references to Hitler, Nazis, and Gamergate, slurs, and other similar content. For anyone that doesn't know about 8chan, it's basically the people who got banned from 4chan.
Yeah.
Essentially.
At this point, I'll let you jump in just for a second. Many times on this podcast, you have mentioned 4chan in the past.
Yes.
And I have made the old Obi-Wan Kenobi meme joke of you'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. This was because I was unaware, as presumably THQ was, that 8chan existed.
Yes. 8chan's been a thing since 2013.
So I've never heard of it.
If you Google 8chan, the first, well, I don't know about now, a week removed from this, but the first thing that comes up is the Wikipedia page, and one of the first things it shows you is child pornography. Like, it doesn't show you it, sorry, it shows you, like, the link to the controversy that kicked off around it, because it got delisted from Google for, like, alleged child pornography. So that kind of tells you the kind of place that this is. And I want you to remember, as we go forward through the rest of this story and we start asking questions and discussing it, that's the first thing that comes up when you Google it. It takes 6 seconds to see this. In 2015, Ars Technica reported that the prevalence of child pornography in posts containing child abuse caused the site to be temporarily delisted from Google search results. Brock, I haven't actually mentioned him, but for some reason I think I must have cut out a paragraph in here. But the guy I'm referring to is Philip Brock, who is the PR and marketing director for THQ Nordic GmbH. Brock offered the following statement to GamesIndustry.biz when questioned about the decision to hold the AMA. Quote, I personally agreed to this AMA without doing my proper due diligence to understand the history and the controversy of the site. I do not condone child pornography, white supremacy, or racism in any shape or form. And when you're a PR manager and you have to say that out loud, you know you've had a great day. I am terribly sorry for my short-sightedness or my decision and promise to be far more vigorous in my assessment of these activities in the future. This was not about being edgy. This blew up and I very much regret to have done it in the first place. End quote. There are 2 updates to the GamesIndustry.biz story. Would you like to hear them?
Go for it.
When pressed further on if there was a reason why the AMA kept going after the criticisms began pouring in, Brock replied, yes, I was fucking overwhelmed with a plethora of different emotions, to be honest. And then he does the thing again about not supporting white supremacy, child pornography. And then the second update, when asked for comment, THQ CEO Lars Wingefors said the PR and marketing manager at THQ Nordic already commented on it through Twitter.
He did say if he could undo it, he would.
I mean, of course he said that.
Yeah. I didn't hear that.
Like, I've got more, like, you can see I've got more stuff, like, that's been pulled from various different sources on the internet. And it includes, like, some questions and responses from the actual AMA. And it's bad. This stuff that they replied to is bad. The stuff that they didn't reply to is worse, so much worse. But yeah, okay. Okay, composure.
Composure.
So here's some stuff. So there's questions and responses on 4chan. I've got 3. One's not really a question, but there is a response. So the first one was, please don't censor any games nor appeal to the social justice crowd. You guys are doing fine as is. To which Brock replies, hold on, stills for suspense, not because my iPad decided to jump back to the top of the document. To which Brock replies, thanks, we'll try to stay that way. The second one, where the big titty lollies at, which also includes an image of 2 young-looking girls having their breasts scrubbed by an older man. Brock actually replies to this and says, you got them already, we'd say. The third one, which isn't a question, is from a board owner who says, guys behave, and posts an image, which I will describe right now, of a Templar knight that says, cease your homophobic slur. I was deciding whether I was going to say that out loud on the podcast. I'm not.
It's a medieval homophobic.
It's a homophobic slur, followed up by a close-up that said, I said cease, to which Reinhard Pollis, like he's been identified as Reinhard Pollis, the business and product development director of THQ Nordic, replies, that could be from one of our upcoming games. Sure. Okay, that's good to know. It makes certain decisions about things a lot easier. The people identified as answering questions for THQ are PR and Marketing Director Philip Brock and Business and Product Development Director Reinhard Pollis. That's from Patrick Klepek over at Waypoint. It was actually on his Twitter. According to Imran Khan over at Game Informer, whose name should be very familiar to anybody who's been watching this podcast since I started naming my sources, the AMA was approved by an entire department and not a one-person rogue operation. THQ Nordic development partner studios and those who have games being published by THQ Nordic are some combination of embarrassed and pissed off that they've been associated with this. Quotes below from multiple sources. There's two anonymous quotes from 2 developers. The first one just says, it feels horrible to be associated with this company in any capacity. The second of which says, goes into a bit more detail, and it says, I definitely worry about the effect it'll have on our audience. The mainstream game audience is arguably already leaning right, and this implicit or explicit approval of this awful group is only going to drive sales in their direction and away from the kind of progressive people that I would love to reach. The comment on continuing to avoid making games for social justice audiences fills me with the most dread. And those are both anonymous developers who work at studios recently acquired or partnered with THQ Nordic, because THQ Nordic is buying the games industry at this moment in time as well. That's everything I have in terms of prepared news stories. So Keith, as owing to our new podcast format, I'm going to ask you one simple question right off the bat. You can see it right in front of you. Why?
I normally try and play devil's advocate or give the voice of reason. And there's only certain things I can say to this. One is that, like me, whoever approved this, or if it's true, a group of people approved this, didn't do the due diligence and confused 4chan with 8chan by not knowing that 8chan was a thing, and thought that they were talking to a group of edgy individuals who are probably still right wing. Am I right in saying that?
Right wing. I mean, they probably make people like Donald Trump look left wing. But just like the next question is kind of a response to what you've just said.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, I didn't know what you were going to say.
Yeah.
So the next bullet point is it even possible? Like, these are things that I've wrote. Sorry, I forgot to actually explain the new format in the intro, I should have done. But yeah, basically, is it even possible that this could have been done without due diligence, as Brock mentions? One Google search will instantly link them to child pornography. Why wouldn't you research the place you're about to associate your brand with, particularly if you've never heard of it? Someone literally pledging to, quote, take care of the nasty stuff isn't enough of a red flag?
Yeah. See, the latter part of that I can kind of understand. It's like, they were approached in a quite friendly manner doing AMA.
Shout
I
out.
have no idea why 8chan is approaching video game developers to come onto their website and talk. I'm not even going to speculate that one. So saying that they'll do the moderation to keep like things under control and stuff, I can kind of understand that. But the fact that none of them bothered to like Google 8chan. Or like none of them bothered to check if like even if they thought it was 4chan, like none of them thought, let's just double check to see if there's any controversy around like this site at first. Or like there hasn't been some recent explosion since last time we've heard about it. As a person, I can kind of understand like saying like, oh, like you want us to hop onto this podcast or something. Yeah, sure, and not doing due diligence to check what it's about. As a company, someone really, really, really should have done that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's if you take it at face value that they didn't know, like what they were doing, which we'll get into in a bit. Yeah, like for you, because obviously as we were talking about this before we hit record, like you didn't know what 8chan was, and like that's totally cool. I understand that you might not necessarily know what 8chan is, and that's fine because you're a person on a video game podcast who has no reason to know what 8chan is. If you're managing the PR of a video game publisher about to do an AMA on 8chan, and you don't check into this specifically if you've never heard of them before, like, and you haven't researched them, like, I go past that's idiotic to that's not possible. For me personally, in my own personal opinion, I don't think that's what went down, regardless of what Brock actually says on Twitter or whatever, like wherever he said this. I think it was on Twitter. He said he didn't know, he didn't do his due diligence. It's like, I don't believe that's true, because I don't believe anyone who is a PR manager at any company the size of THQ Nordic doesn't figure out who they're about to go and talk to. That's like 101. That's like the base level of the job that you do. Like, that's insane to me. Like, that's not reality to me, basically, is like what I'm trying to say. Like, I can't grasp that as a concept at all. There's like, oops, I made a mistake, and then there's, that's such a fundamental mistake. I don't understand how you... Like, without meaning to sound mean-spirited about it, I don't understand how, if you can make that kind of fundamental error, that you have the job that you have to begin with. And again, I'm not trying to be mean-spirited about it. I'm mean-spirited about a lot of this, but that in particular, it's just like, that doesn't compute to me at all. The next bullet point. Given the responses noted above, it seems like the participants knew exactly what they were getting into and exactly how to talk to these people. Like, they were giving the responses that seemed in line with what they would not expect, but like hope that they would get. Like the social justice crowd comment, for example, just being like, "Yeah, thanks, we're not gonna." Yeah, that
one could seem like. Well, that could like off the cuff sort of like, yeah, thanks, we'll continue to make games our way, whatever. It's the other one, the one about the lollies.
The lollies.
Yeah. That one is, unless this guy like even completely froze and everything, even then it's just like, I haven't seen the image. I've had it described to me. I don't want it described to me again.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. It's like, just so you don't go back. It's like, why address that image? Like, why not just either A, ignore it completely?
Which they've been doing. Like, throughout this AMA, like, there were Heil Hitlers. There were all sorts of transphobic, sexist, homophobic, racist slurs being thrown left and right by commenters on the image board, and we'll get into that in a moment, specifically in a moment. But if they were ignoring all of those things, like, why didn't they ignore that as well?
And if all we were getting was like Heil Hitlers and that, why not just pull the plug, literally, claim technical malfunctions, and then have a serious talk about why on earth you were doing this in the first place.
It was almost instantaneous from what I see, because this is one of the few times where, because we were doing a charity live stream, I wasn't in it. Like, I didn't see it happening. I saw it happening 2 days later. So I was going back through like Twitter feeds and stuff, and they put this thing up which says, "We're doing an AMA on it, and we don't know why." And the response is almost instantaneous from people saying, this is a fucking terrible idea. Like Nazism, child pornography, Gamergate, harassment campaigns. Like, don't do this. And that's when the defensive tweet comes out 30 minutes later. But you've hit on the next bullet point with what you were saying there, so I'm just going to jump straight into it. The AMA went on for 2 hours. Despite the rampant racism, sexism, transphobia, general bigotry, and users posting pornographic and Nazi imagery, and despite a tidal wave of backlash on social media almost immediately. Hence the defensive tweet 30 minutes after the announcement. At what point do you not realise this was a bad idea and pull the plug? Now, Brock kind of addresses this in his statement to GamesIndustry.biz, where he says, like, when asked why he didn't just pull the plug, he says, "I was fucking overwhelmed." But the actions of someone being overwhelmed aren't to keep going. The actions of someone overwhelmed are to go, shit, I'm overwhelmed, and stop. So again, that statement doesn't jive with what actually happened in that moment. Like, if you're overwhelmed by something, you don't keep going. If thousands of people are telling you this is a bad idea, and you're overwhelmed by that, you would just stop and take stock. And that's not what happened. There was so much horrible stuff in this AMA that any sane person who is doing what THQ Nordic were doing at this point would have looked at and gone, maybe this is a bad idea, unless they already knew what they were doing. And they already knew where they were going, and they already knew the people that they were going to be talking to. And they kept going because they got exactly what they wanted out of this. Or they were... well, I don't know if they got exactly what they wanted out of this because it kind of blew up in their faces, but controversy was what they were aiming for, is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Maybe not this
the
level of controversy.
The
edgelord thing, yeah.
Yeah.
At what point do you not realise this is a bad idea and pull the plug? If we take everything they've said at face value, it's almost immediately.
Yeah. Within a few minutes, from what I've read, they were getting the sort of stuff that they should have pulled the plug, or that they made a catastrophic mistake.
It's like going back to the charity stream. Actually, you go first. Yeah, sorry.
Right. What the little F? It's like the sort of imagery in like remarks and stuff that were being made. Now, I've been in chat on several Twitch things and stuff, but Twitch has terms of service. 8chan doesn't.
Not. I mean, that's the reason it exists.
Yeah. Even Twitch, you get like trolls and stuff. Yeah. But by the sounds of it, most of the stuff that was coming up to like THQ Nordic wasn't about their brand, really.
Nope.
It was just an excuse for people to chat and rant and post like images like... I don't even want to say teenagers.
I mean, it's an animated drawing, and it's quite difficult to. But I mean, I've seen it, and they definitely don't look. Yeah, no, it's not great. Like, I mean, it's fucking filth, but. And I have a low bar for filth. Like, I have, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a prude in any way, shape, or form, but at the same time, it's like there's some things that are just unacceptable. I was speechless when I first started reading about this stuff. But yeah,
I remember your reaction on Livestream about them just that they were going to do it.
Yeah,
which was just, and then you put the phone down and said, "I'll deal with that once it's finished."
I couldn't. I was trying to do it. I was trying to do a charity live stream and raise money for charity. Like, at that point, I just couldn't deal with something like that while we were trying to do what we were trying to do. But yeah, like, you talk about Twitch in terms of service and chat and stuff. It's like, yeah, I have rules on my Twitch channel, And when one of those rules is broken, like for example, during the charity stream, I mentioned we had trolls, and when those trolls started using certain words and certain slurs and certain language, I didn't wait to see what they would do next. I banned them from Twitch chat. Like
the ban hammer came out.
The ban hammer comes out. Like it's a similar situation here. Where it's like as soon as you saw this, the plug should have been pulled immediately. It should have been like, no, we don't deal with people who throw around Nazi imagery, who harass people, who post child porn, almost. Like, so the last bullet point, unless you've got anything more you want to add to the discussion, which I wrote as I'd gotten to the end of all of this and written it all out, and I just wrote this at the end, because I alluded to this at the beginning, like, we've had moments where we've almost cut off certain publishers and certain companies for doing certain things, but then we've always realized there was more value in sticking with covering them. So we could say, hey, these guys are still doing this bad thing. But in this instance, I'm just going to read this and say, yes, we are absolutely stopping all coverage of THQ Nordic on Words About Games. To which I have explained. Associating your studio with an image board with a history of child pornography, Nazism, bigotry, hate speech, and harassment campaigns is a surprisingly easy line in the sand to draw. Like, it was surprisingly easy for me to see this, dig into all of the detail of it, like, read the news articles, read the people on Twitter talking about it, read the people who know stuff, read the anonymous comments, and just go, yeah, no, we're out. Yeah. Like,
I mean, I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been more of a reaction from THQ Nordic. If there is, you may not be covering it. Although you may get some sort of catharsis by posting on Twitter, just like what happens at stock prices after that.
I don't. Yeah, sure. I mean, I might like. It's kind of sad in a way for me personally, like, because they now hold some brands that I really enjoy, like some games that I really enjoy. They now hold them hostage. Essentially, and my heart bleeds for all of the developers who work at studios that have been acquired by THQ Nordic or who are development partners with THQ Nordic, who have been published by them, who have been caught up in this and obviously in no way, shape or form wanted to be caught up in this. Like, I feel so bad for them right now. And just in the ones that have anonymously come forward and said certain stuff, like, people who work as journalists in the industry have said it's a mixture of embarrassment and being angry. It's like, if I was a developer at any of these studios, I would be fucking furious that this happened. And I feel real sympathy for them, but at the same time, I have to sort of sit here and go, if the next THQ Nordic game drops tomorrow, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, okay, how do I even begin to just do I do a review of the game separate from everything that's happened? And I don't think I can't in my head. It would just be these are also the people who just went on 8chan and kind of associated themselves with all of this stuff that happened in this AMA link, which they left up for 12 hours on their Twitter. It was 2 hours the AMA lasted, and then the apology came out, but the link was still there. If there was a THQ Nordic game that dropped tomorrow, I couldn't do it. So, I apologize to the developers who had no input into this or anything like that. But nah, this is a line in the sand that I'm drawing and just saying, nah, this is too much. Like you said before, what the literal fuck? Why did you do this? Anyway, that's enough talking about that. And vomit. I would say I didn't raise my voice, but I raised my voice almost immediately. Let's move on. So we've got a piece here from an interview from Amy Hennig, who says she thinks a game like Uncharted wouldn't be a viable pitch today. So I've pulled the words for this from Sharif Sharat, written by Sharif Said over at VG247, who writes, Uncharted series co-creator Amy Hennig is certain the type of game the very first Uncharted was wouldn't exist today. At the DICE Summit in Las Vegas, Amy Hennig touched on the topic of modern single-player games in an interview with VentureBeat. Contrary to what you may think, Hennig doesn't believe single-player games are going extinct, they're just evolving. Quote, I don't think anybody would say single-player is dead. Plenty of people have tried to say that, but, she's correct. Quote, look at the current crop of games, it's just a harder and harder proposition. Now you have to have a lot of hours of gameplay. It would never cut it. Usually some sort of online mode. And of course you see where things are pushing toward live services and battle royale and games as a service. All of those things, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but they play less nicely with story. They're less conducive to traditional storytelling. That has a shape and an arc and a destination, an end. A game that is a live service that continues does not. End quote. The veteran writer and game director also pointed out that games like God of War, Spider-Man, and even Red Dead Redemption 2 are all much longer than the single-player games she used to make. Quote, yes, you can look at Spider-Man and RDR and Red Dead and God of War, and they're deeply narrative, but they're also really long. There's also an understanding that a lot of people may never finish it. They'll only play the first part of the game. As a writer going into it with that understanding, as Hennig puts it, makes me crazy as a storyteller. The length and complexity and the layers that are in these games now, submissions and skill trees, all of these things are great. I'm not saying we shouldn't have them, but it makes it harder. It's harder to tell a single-player, narrative-focused game. End quote. End news story. Into the bullet points. Keith, you have something to say.
How would you rate Titanfall 2's campaign?
Extremely exceptional.
It's one of the best, or probably was the best, sci-fi story in a game that came out that year.
Indeed.
Also, how long did it take me to complete that campaign?
No idea. I was asleep.
About 4 hours.
Would you say that Titanfall 2 was a campaign with a tactile multiplayer mode? Or would you say that it was a multiplayer game that had a campaign?
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring this up. I was like, I kind of see it as like...
Sorry, I'm not actually trying to be flippant. I've got an itch. I'm just trying to scratch while I'm talking. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I know that, like, the
also, what did it respawn to next?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. I'm done. I was being flippant there, and I apologise.
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
I've lost my thread.
Damn it! Ah, damn it! My flippancy. Oh,
yeah, I'll let you continue your bullet points.
No, I really want to get the point that you were trying to make. You were talking about Titanfall 2 and how great Titanfall 2's story was, and then I said was it not a multiplayer game with a single player story? And then you were like, I knew you were going to say that, you bitch. I fucking hate you. You're the worst person ever. Oh, that's what you said.
That wasn't it.
It's a recording.
Yeah, no, it's gone. I mean, you could say that the campaign in Titanfall 2 was an apology for the story in Titanfall 1, but it wasn't. It was just it was an amazing experience which drew on the feels and the engagement that you don't really get in a lot of first-person shooters, because the campaign in Titanfall 2 is pretty much what you get in, like, beyond ignoring Blackout and stuff, what you get in a Call of Duty game or a Battlefield game. They're not overly long.
It was a traditional first person.
Crafted.
Yeah, in terms of like structure and length, it was your traditional sort of first person shooter storytelling.
Yeah.
Or
they're not generally that long.
It was, like, we don't know what that is now. Between Battlefield 5 doing war stories and Call of Duty Black Ops 4 not having one, like, we don't really...
Yeah.
In terms of, like, traditional storytelling in a first-person shooter, it's like, we don't really have that right now. Like,
we'll just have to wait for Halo Infinite to see which way they go.
It's like quicksand at the moment. Yeah, so I mean, my first question is she right about 12-hour campaigns in AAA gaming, presumably, being unviable? Titanfall 2, I mean, you kind of answered that, that question by talking about Titanfall 2, but how many other, AAA games have come out in that time span with even 8 to 12 hour campaigns, and then nothing else? So it's just the campaign, because that's what the original Uncharted was. It was a story game where you played for about 8 to 12 hours, and you just played the story from start to finish. It was awesome. The gameplay was really good, the story was really good, the characters were really good, but once you were done, unless you wanted to replay the narrative, there was nothing else for you. There was no end game, there was no loot, there was no content drops every 30 days or whatever. And incidentally,
there was no roadmap to further.
Do you remember a time when games didn't need loot to convince you to keep playing? I do.
I dimly recall those halcyon days in front of my Sega Saturn. Yeah. I mean, I get where she's coming from. Especially the whole thing, like, it's not dead, they're not dead, they've just evolved, and it's a different thing, and I do get it. It's like, I'm thinking about something like the Tomb Raider games and stuff, and it's like, because, like, Nathan Drake, Lara Croft.
Yeah, cool, totally.
I mean, I've never played Nathan Drake game, but I kind of get the idea. It's got more story in it, I would imagine. More character development stuff, at least in Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Amy Hennig is an exceptionally talented writer. I'll skip the second bullet point and save it for a second, because we're kind of talking about the third one at the moment. Are campaigns being so long actually a good thing? Each of the games mentioned, Spider-Man, God of War, Red Dead, are excellent, but their stories definitely feel padded out in areas, probably from being so long. So, like you talk about Tomb Raider isn't necessarily an 8 to 12 hour game. You could make it that, but it's also not necessarily an open world game. Like, it's a series of open hubs with side missions and skill trees, like Amy Hennig says in the thing. And then on the flip side of that, the games that she mentions in terms of like God of War, Spider-Man, and especially Red Dead, like, they're all like 20, 30, 40 hour experiences. In terms of Spider-Man and God of War, there are definite lulls in the story where things seem a bit more padded out than they necessarily should be, or like things could have been tighter. Especially sort of Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man's second act in general was quite stretched, especially considering when you get to the third act, which begins with the cutscene we saw at E3 with the five, then they're breaking out from prison, and from that point on, it's like, fuck yeah, this is amazing. And in terms of Red Dead 2, which is a game I never finished because I just couldn't with the gameplay, people talk about I've seen people talk about the epilogue of that game on Twitter, where it's like the epilogue lasts like 6 to 10 hours. Mm-hmm. And it's like, is that not like really fucking long for an epilogue?
Hands on heart, I have played a game like over 100 odd hours, and it's just like because that's Persona 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's not black and white. You know what I mean? Like, there are games that are going to justify the massive like time investment. Yeah. And Spider-Man and God of War specifically are amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I was gonna say, in like Persona 5, there are these like couple of times where I did feel like it's like, it's like I've got this like thing where I've got to do like there's like these gateposts of when you've got to have the palace completed, and if you complete them too quickly, you're just kind of like kicking your heels, waiting for it to get to a specific date. But that's kind of part of the whole thing.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's built around that calendar. So, like, regardless
it's built around the calendar, of a Japanese high school.
Regardless of how quickly you do certain things or whatever, like, it's still always going to be day after day after day after day, and you do, because even if you finish a palace and you're just kicking your heels around, as you say, that's the moment where you can be like, cool, now I'll work on my skills, like, I'll work on leveling up like this or that, or maybe
a personal relationship.
Yeah, like making personal relationships. Like, now I'll spend this week just talking to this person to level up the social status of them. Like, a good example of this I find would be Alien Isolation from a few years ago, where I believe the game took me about 12, 13, 14, maybe even a bit longer in terms of hours. And there's a definite point in probably about halfway, just over halfway through that game, where it could have ended, and it would have been incredible. And instead, what happened was it kept going. And it, until you get to sort of the last couple of hours of that game, there's a lot of material. There's basically everything in between those 2 points is just like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Like, you spend a long stretch of time basically where there's no alien, and it's like, I'm playing Alien Isolation, guys, and I'm currently doing a stealth section from these dudes who want to kill me for some reason, like stuff like that, where it's just like, if this game had been shorter, it would have been better. But I have a feeling it's one of those things where it's like, it needs to be as long as possible because it's a single-player game that doesn't have multiplayer. And there is that whole thing of, like, dollar value versus hours, which we've had the discussion on the podcast before about, like, long games and short games and value for money. Two, I'm sure, quick ones. This one's a leading question. But it has an obvious answer, I feel, for both of us and our personal opinions, which is she right about live service games, such as Destiny, The Division, and Anthem, being weak on telling satisfying stories?
Personal opinion, Destiny was really short on delivering a satisfying story. Destiny 2, not so much, because they'd learned from the first one. It's that integrating those storylines with the DLC and the expanding the roadmap. That's what the word they call the roadmap. That's kind of a harder thing to do, and obviously we kind of left it at that point. But yeah, it's like a lot of like large multiplayer games don't deliver the individual stories, the great.
Yeah. It's like
the great thematic lines that, single player campaigns do.
It's like Destiny 2's campaign is a lot better than The Division and Destiny 1. Yeah. Anthem I can't speak to because the grind just got me and I'm not going back to it. But it was also kind of separate from the rest of the multiplayer game. It was like you finish the campaign and then you launch yourself into the rest of the game. Which I think bears out by the fact that the three of us that played it all played the campaign separately and then came together afterwards and played the strikes and the Crucible and whatever else. And obviously those are things you unlock further into the campaign anyway. But yeah, no, it was an interesting topic that I wanted to discuss, and like, it's the most intelligent version of single player games are dying that I've seen, because it's not, they're just evolving. Like, we know single player games aren't dying, despite the fact that analysts everywhere and AAA game publishers everywhere will try and tell you that they are. And we've scoffed many times at those news stories. And now Amy Hennig comes out and is like, no, this is actually what's happening. And it's like, yeah, that's actually what's happening. And it makes for interesting discussions. Speaking of interesting discussions, I don't know if this is going to be a discussion so much as I'm just going to put a tinfoil hat on and get my whiteboard out and just start pinboarding pins and lines and stuff. This one is titled, Amy Fell Down an Internet Rabbit Hole and Death Stranding Might Actually Be Silent Hills. For real, guys. For real. So there's actually a series of pretty cool theories that Death Stranding might be Silent Hills, in some crazy twist that would, admittedly, be on brand for Hideo Kojima, the dude who invented an entire studio to announce the Phantom Pain and pretend it wasn't a Metal Gear Solid game, and who had the idea of PT, and who managed to hide the fact that Raiden, not Snake, was the main character of Metal Gear Solid 2 until after it came out. What I'm saying is, Kojima does weird shit, like, to announce games. So, you ready for me? And you can feel free to just jump in at any moment while I'm reading these things, Keith. So, because I've already converted someone I know, like, with this list. But big shout out to Leon Hurley at Games Radar for basically compiling all of this into one place. So, Death Stranding could be Silent Hills, example number one. There's some big easy things right up front. For example, both games feature prominent babies. But perhaps one of the biggest matchups can be found in the concept trailer for Silent Hills that Kojima revealed at the Tokyo Game Show in 2014. It features a monster later actually data mined as a finished model from the PT demo. That's basically a giant hand chasing the player. I know what my nightmares are going to be about tonight. Monstrous pursuing hands in a far more cryptic form are a central entity in Death Stranding. It's hard to miss that the two monsters are basically made of hands. I'm going to keep looking at your reaction every time I finish a point, just to see. Number 2.
Yeah, I feel I need to have the hood up for conspiracy theory.
Oh, okay, that's good. I don't have a hood.
I mean, when I read this, I did think it was on par with the Link is Doom guy conspiracy.
Number 2. There's a post that compares some of the paintings from the Silent Hills teaser with location from various Death Stranding trailer shots. There are a lot of locations from pictures in PT that are in Death Stranding trailers. The similarities are strong. For good measure, there's also a shot of another painting that looks exactly like the black Icelandic beach Norman Reedus wakes up on in the original Death Stranding reveal. Like, basically, the places in PTs, in the pictures in PT, are basically in Death Stranding, or at least they're in the trailers. Number 3. Back in 2014, while he was working on Silent Hills, and 2 years before Death Stranding was announced, Kojima tweeted some location scouting from Godard in Iceland, referencing Silent Hill 2 in the tweet. Kojima also tweeted a picture of Moss in 2014. He tweeted an in-game screenshot from Death Stranding in 2018 that looks identical. And it's in-game. So it doesn't look identical because obviously like one's a real-world photo and one's a video game.
Yeah.
Presumably a video game. And like,
not a shared hallucination.
They're exactly the same. Number 4. There's also a picture in PT that if you flip it over and reverse the colour, you get a dead ringer for the old Chisetsu Tunnel in Fukuoka, one of Japan's most famous haunted locations. It also looks, it says remarkably similar. It also looks exactly like the bridge in the Death Stranding trailer from the Game Awards. Now, fair play to whoever took one picture of one picture, which obviously didn't look like a bridge from PT, and think to flip it over, reverse the colours, and go, holy shit, that looks like a bridge. Like, fair play to that person. Not only does that look like a bridge, that looks like this exact bridge.
I feel like it's someone that's been to said bridge.
Yeah. It's like, just saw it and was like, hang on a minute. Number 5.
Possibly haunted.
Yeah. Supposedly, it's one of the most haunted places in Japan.
Fuji Forest.
Yeah, one of. Number 5, the bridge that has a letter J in the centre brick above the arch. In one of PT's fake game crash screens, you can see as you play with a message signed off with that initial. Again, like, just to clarify, we're talking about Kojima, who has games that are supposed indie horror games that have fake game crash screens. This is a guy who, like, is playing, like, 4D chess when he announces a game. Number 6, there are also some weird thematic links, like the talking bag at the beginning of the PT demo. Apparently there's there's two predominant theories about what's in the bag from PT. One is a head, obviously, because it talks. But number 2, the second one is the characters who you play as, Norman Reedus. Apparently the second predominant theory that his genitals are in that bag. I did not follow that rabbit hole. For obvious reasons, but I just thought I would add that for a bit of flavour.
Yeah.
So the talking bag at the beginning of the PT demo saying, I walked, I could do nothing but walk, and then I saw me walking in front of myself. But it wasn't really me. Watch out. The gap in the door. It's separate reality. The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you? Sam, the supposed main character for Death Stranding, is a delivery man who has been seen basically walking everywhere. Plus, there's all the talk of separate realities, seeing yourself and being unsure if you are the only you. A Death Stranding fundamental seems to revolve around at least 3 other realities. The main world, another plane full of shadowy monsters trying to push through, and some sort of water purgatory you visit when you die. Except you don't actually die, you come back because video games. Are you still the only you if you return from the dead? Number 7. This is where it gets a bit... weird. I mean, it's all weird, but... Then there's the band Low Roar, who performed the song I'll Keep Coming from the Death Stranding trailers. They released an album in 2014, again when Kojima was working on Silent Hills and Death Stranding was definitely not a thing. That fits the Death Stranding artwork perfectly. It lines up with the strands running behind Norman Reedus' character's face and shape of the head perfectly. So this is super fucking weird. Basically, you know the sign-on picture of Norman Reedus' face for like that Death Stranding, right? And there's lines behind him, which we've seen before in the trailers for Death Stranding, which is like the lines of the things that he sees on the landscape. So if you take this album cover, right, from this band who do the theme song who do the trailer song for Death Stranding, and you put it over the top of this image, the lines, all, because it's basically just lines, and like if you're just looking at this album, it's just random lines. But if you actually look at this album and put it on top, the lines that are coming down then go like run on the side of Norman Reedus' face, and then they outline like his facial features perfectly. Like around his eye is perfectly drawn around his eye, and like got around his mouth and his nose and stuff, and it's like, that's fucking freaky, man. That is freaky as fuck, because the album was released in 2014 and the image of Norman Reedus was released many years later. But they line up perfectly. Perfectly. Anyway, number 8, this is the last one. Something that's less hard to brush away is the 2017 music video for Laura's Give Me an Answer, where director Dylan Marco Bell specifically says it would be fun to create a world where certain fans could physically enter the game Death Stranding before it came out. That's all well and good until the entire video's concept hinges on people apparently entering Death Stranding via a PT-esque bathroom. The gap in the door is a different reality, is something that the bag says at the beginning of PT. And the thing that kicks off the supernatural elements of PT is when you're walking through the infamous corridor and you can't get out the door. You turn around, you come back, you look, the bathroom doors open slightly, and when you look through the gap, as in, you know, because there's the only thing you can really do in PT is interact with things and zoom in. When you zoom in, that's when you see the lady, Lisa, I believe she was called. You see her, and then she closes the door. Boom. The bathroom is the portal to another reality. Do I sound sane at all right now?
I'll let my previous actions during your discourse
I wasn't paying attention. Motherfucker.
I know you would.
Alright.
So,
yeah, go on. You go first.
if it turns out that Death Stranding is just Silent Hills, and this is all some sort of elaborate marketing thing, then I've got to take my hat to Kojima just for going further than the Overwatch went with Sombra, where you had to like practically data mine, like you had to fill out all these weird internet riddles and like solve like Da Vinci Code-esque things just to find out teeny bits of information,
I remember
like
that.
the date of the next reveal of Sombra.
Yeah.
Because they went overboard.
They went overboard. Overwatch officially like made all of their character reveals a lot simpler after the feedback they got from that.
Yeah. Number 30. Hey, here's an image.
Here's another date. Fuck you! Tell us! Yeah. So I wrote 3 notes on here. I'm going to read them out. So like, my first one is an admission, which is basically, okay, so it might just be that Death Stranding is reusing a lot of concept from Kojima's vision for Silent Hills. But there are also a lot of coincidences. Like, a lot of coincidences. And Kojima has been known to pull some wild, crazy shit promoting his games. What it's basically saying is, yes, there is a very high probability that all Kojima has done is he's taken his concepts and all of the location scouting work and a bunch of other stuff from what he made, what he worked on, because he was working on Silent Hills for a little while before everything that happened. And he's probably taken that and put a lot of it in Death Stranding. But I say a very high probability. If this was any other developer or development studio, I would say that's all they've done. But because this is Kojima, like, I can't 100% rule out that this isn't Silent Hills based on all of this stuff. Like, it's just not... You can't be certain with this guy. And also, like, there are some... Like, some of the coincidences are really strange. Like, some of them you could just explain away as, yeah, he did some location scouting in Iceland, and he wanted to use the locations that he found in Death Stranding, so he did. Yeah, but you can't rule out that Kojima's Kojima, and he's doing Kojima.
All I can say for certain about all of this is that Kojima is living in your head. He has claimed a portion of it and is not letting go.
Ever since, right, here's the thing. Here's when it started. Ever since the camera went down Norman Reedus' throat and there was a baby, and the baby gave you the thumbs up, and then the camera comes back out. Ever since then, Death Stranding has lived inside my head. I was like, what is this? What is this?
The thing is, I know you're not the only one, because I've seen some YouTubers attempt to tackle this before around the E3 press conference, where they were sure that they were going to get some sort of information.
And it just gets worse.
And then it totally didn't.
And then it just gets worse. It's crazy. Like, I've put this as a bullet point. I've said this about 50 times on the podcast. I'll say it again. I am not convinced anything we've seen of Death Stranding is from the game in any way. Like, we have seen, like, apart from the original initial announcement, where it was Norman Reedus with the baby and the things floating and whatnot, because that was very conceptual. But then we've seen 3 really in detail trailers for the game at this point, right? One, we've seen a lot of this game, like, this game before it comes out. 2, like, it's Kojima, I'm not convinced any of this is real. And 3, like, I was thinking about this when I was looking at this, and all 3 of those trailers, like, they look like they're from entirely different games. Like, if they're all game trailers, these 3 things basically have, apart from Norman Reedus, basically have nothing in common with each other. Like, if these are all from one game, like, and again, I go back to the question of, what the fuck is this thing? Like,
a walking tour of Kojima's mind? That would actually probably sell.
It would. I would buy that twice, so I could force my other copy on people. My last bullet point is, it is worth noting that PlayStation and Konami are close business partners. That's how PC became a PS4 exclusive in the first place, and they could have worked out a deal for the rights for Silent Hills.
I was thinking of the ultimate joke would just be come out and, like, Konami's on the back, like, what, and it's just Silent Hills, not Death Stranding.
Like, I'm convinced at this point, not necessarily that this is Silent Hills, I'm convinced that this is 4D chess and Kojima's doing something. And, yeah.
Possibly living in your head.
I mean, he's definitely living in my head. Maybe that's why there was no PSX. And that's why there's no Sony at E3, because they can't show any more Death Stranding. Because the next reveal is the reveal of what the game actually is. Imagine if they just didn't. Imagine if this was Silent Hills and they just didn't tell anyone. And then they came out and there's Death Stranding and everybody's buying Death Stranding and everybody's like the boxes on the shelves and stuff. And then they get it home, they put it in and it's like Silent Hill.
Or you just open up, you put the disc in, and then you notice that the inside cover of the Death Stranding thing is Silent Hill.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, Kojima has done something like that in the past. I referenced it at the beginning of us talking about this. Like, he didn't tell anyone that the protagonist of Metal Gear Solid 2 wasn't the protagonist of Metal Gear Solid, like, that he'd been showing everyone.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not, you can't put it past him to do it because he's done it before. Anyway. We'll come up back to this. Keith, Halo Infinite will be a spiritual reboot for the franchise. I'm just reading. Bonnie Ross has basically been talking about Halo Infinite, which is effectively Halo 6. The team at 343 Industries is bringing their experience with the entire Halo franchise to bear in developing the new game, which aims to recapture what makes Halo such an iconic franchise. We're kind of calling it a spiritual reboot. That's kind of how we're talking about it. According to Ross, 343 had great learning moments with Halo the Master Chief Collection, I bet they did, the multiplayer suite in Halo 4, and the approach to rec packs and free maps in Halo 5 multiplayer, and the studio has been keeping those moments in mind while crafting Halo Infinite. Quote, there has been a lot of introspective time to really reflect on what we have done as 343. Where have we made mistakes? Where have we hit it right? What does Halo mean to all of us? That Halo Infinite reveal trailer we did is what Halo means to the studio. And then the rest of that is just not necessary. So, I'm going to do the last 2 bullet points.
Yeah.
Like, what do we actually think of Halo 4 and 5? And the Master Chief Collection, I guess.
I kind of liked Halo. I did think we were going to at some point go through what we thought of like each Halo game individually. It's something else. But Halo 5 was kind of... I liked the innovation that they did in the squad mechanic instead of just going through it yourself. That was interesting. But I preferred 4.
War Games. Was that what it was called?
No, I'm on about the actual campaign there, mate.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yes. You're always with a squad.
You had teams.
Yeah, you had a team, yeah.
Yeah. War Games from 4, where you had the rec packs and stuff.
That was it. Yes, it was from 4.
That's I think the best multiplayer I've played for Halo.
Also, I was thinking of, Warzone. The name has come back to me now that you said it was from 4. The one from 5 where it was like big team battles and you spawned in vehicles with points and stuff. That was really cool. The campaign in 4 gets a lot of stick that it doesn't deserve because it's not trying to be the big bombastic action blockbuster that the first 3 Halo games were going to be. Like, it is. And it has all those big action moments, but it's also trying to tell a story and make It's trying to do to Halo what God of War did to Kratos. Make the Master Chief a character that's worth giving a shit about. Because the Master Chief is cool and he's a badass in the first 3 Halo games, but in Halo 4 he's an actual character with feelings and motivations and a story arc.
Yeah. I could see what I feel is that they made Cortana more human. Because there's a few times where she mentioned about like the lack of emotion from Master Chief, and like which one of them is the real machine.
Yeah,
and it's like looking back, it's almost kind of like maybe about spoiler, but like it's like the end of a relationship.
Yeah,
but like she's obviously like feeling stuff, and he's also like dying in the 4th one. And then she comes back in 5 with a bit insane. Although also kind of right.
Yeah, I mean, we won't really know what's going on there until we get the 6th Halo game. But like in terms of like 4, it is like that story arc and that relationship between the two of them, and you get like scenes like the very end of Halo 4 where he's talking to the human guy, and they're having a conversation. And instead of like the end of Halo being drive away from the exploding thing, and then massive action, and then a very quick sort of hey we won, and then that's it. It's like they're literally standing on the deck of the ship, looking out into space, having an introspective conversation about the human condition. And it's like I dig the fuck out of this right now. This is fucking awesome.
You have that amazing bit that we had to do so many times when me, you, and Russell did it on Legendary. But you have the space fight, you go and you have the fight and everything. The fight with the boss did feel a bit weird because they don't really do boss fights, so it's just kind of like
boss
quick
fights
time and then
weird in Halo.
Yeah, and then it's like it's over, and you get the moment where like Cortana says goodbye, then you think that's her gone, and then you have the talk with Lasky or somebody can tell.
It might be Lasky. And he says something about we're not machines, and then the last year she said that once about being a machine, and it's just like. There's more pathos in this one scene than there has been in the entire franchise.
I think there's a scene after that where you see him walk through the halls of like where all the Spartan 2s are, and everyone's looking at them because it's the Master Chief, and he's just like they're just like taking the armor off him, which has been on for a decade at this point. But then the next one he's got like the new armor, which is slightly less dented,
which is like not fucked up. Yeah, I feel like. There were some things Halo 5 did well, but I feel like it really fumbled the story. Like, if you imagine like the metaphor of Halo 4 like passes the ball, and then like Halo 5 just drops it.
Yeah. Well, the fact like Halo 4 was like, okay, we got rid of the flood. What do we do now? Also, we really make him like Chief less of a like just like
blank slate.
Blank slate, yeah. Which did in a weird way because it's not. I don't think it's explicitly stated, but there's that bit with because I've played the first couple of levels on the stream, and they do kind of come up with the like heavily suggest that the Chief's like a white male.
Because they keep showing his image. That he is as well.
Yeah.
That was the other thing about Halo 5. It was like you really needed knowledge of what had been going on in the meta fiction, like in terms of the novels and stuff. Like, for example, at the beginning of Halo 5, he just has like other Spartans with him.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's apparently like, oh yeah, this is totally normal. And like, to me, who hasn't read any of the novels, like, or at least not the novels in the current canon, because they rebooted the canon of the novels and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I don't know who the fuck these people are. These are apparently Spartan 1s. Like, no, this is a big deal because all the Spartan 1s died. Like, I've played all of the Halo games. Hell, I played Halo Reach. I watched most of them die.
Yeah, it's like, that was like, I remember seeing it because I've read the first 2 books like you did that they ever made. And it's like, when you play Halo Reach, only one of the Spartans survives. When the Spartan 1 survives.
He doesn't so much survive as you just don't see him die.
Well, it's like he's mentioned in Halo 4. If you look at the armor, you know the like different armor sets you can get, like the helmet and the stuff and stuff. You can get his armor set, and it talks about them in the present tense. One of them.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
And so it's like, and then these other ones are like, okay, these are meant to be like other Spartan ones that like the Chiefs like fought with before. Not his team, because all of his team died, which is why you don't see them in the first 4 games.
Anyway.
I think they're meant to be like the last of the Spartan ones or something. Can't remember, it's been a while since I played 5.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask the question, then I'm going to run because I really need to pee for a second, and I'll be back in a second. So you just talk. What do we want to see from Halo 6? Go.
Halo 6. I do want to see Warzone return. That would be cool. I think it was definitely my favourite. Looks over a Titanfall 2 everyone. It was definitely my favourite Halo multiplayer fight. I mean, I did have a thing for SWAT and like deathmatch, but yeah, I really did prefer the like big team battles. I had that big team out the Warzone at different points, just going on with weapons. Campaign-wise, I want them to kind of pick up the ball and run with it this time instead of dropping it. That's kind of what I want.
Apologies, hormones are a bitch. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you just said when she's awkward, but in terms of what I actually want from Halo 6, I just want them to double down on the kind of storytelling they were doing in Halo 4 for the single-player campaign. Just in terms of like it being more of a character drama necessarily. Like, still have all the big action and explosions and shit because it's Halo, right? Like,
and the inevitable drive away from a giant exploding thing.
And the inevitable drive away from or towards a giant explosion. Maybe mix things up a bit. Have us have to drive towards something that's about to explode. In terms of the multiplayer, all I'm really bothered about is bring back Warzone, but don't make it so reliant on rec packs.
Oh, you totally know they're going to have the rec packs because that's how you make the money.
They're going to have.
I've even mentioned it.
Bollocks. I mean, you hyped? Not hyped. Are you excited for Halo Infinite?
Not yet. Well, when we start seeing trailers and stuff, I'll get hyped. At the moment, I'm still like, when?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're overdue at this point. Like, it should have come out last year on the Halo timetable, the traditional Halo timetable.
I am more at this point. It's like if it's coming for the next like generation of console, if that's what's happening, I'm kind of looking forward to like next Titanfall on that, or a remake of Titanfall 2 on that.
Yeah, it's like at this point, like in terms of things I want to see revealed, I guess whatever this unique twist on the Titanfall franchise is, like, is probably the thing I'm most intrigued to see more of. Like, at this point, like, of things that we haven't seen too much of. But Halo Infinite's up there because as much as the series isn't quite as what's the best way to describe it? As much as it isn't quite doesn't feel quite as vital as it once did. Like, it's not like when Halo 2 and Halo 3 were coming out and it was like that was the biggest thing that was happening in video games at the time. I'm still a fan and I still want to see where this is going. And again, like, everybody like kind of shits on 343 a bit, and it's like, well, Halo 4 was really good though. Like, I mean, the multiplayer wasn't great, wasn't amazing or anything, but the fucking story was really good. Like, do more of that. Just don't do what you did in Halo 5 and have the main character be some really boring, not Master Chief dude for most of the game.
Barton Locke, yeah.
Yeah, you orbited it.
Yeah, that wasn't a good thing.
No. Anyway, we're going to skip to games out this week.
Yeah.
PSA, number 6 was a funny story about Steam being haunted. PSA, if you start hearing really creepy sounds coming out of your computer and you've got Steam open, close Steam down. Because it's automatically playing sounds from Amnesia, The Dark Descent. Alternatively, throw your whole computer in the bin and set it on fire because it's obviously haunted. I believe I can summarize that thusly.
Yeah.
It was a Fallout thing, and then I changed it to that, and then I'm just like, yeah, there's a lot here, but basically someone went on Reddit and was like, I got back to my computer, and it was laughing. Help. Which is fucked up. And if that ever happened to me, I don't know what I'd do. Anyway, there are 3 games out this week. I'll just do the whole list, because there's only 3. Well, there's lots of games, but these are notable. And most of the games that are coming out this week are re-releases, or ports. So the 3 games out this week, on March 5th, we have Left Alive on PC and PS4. And we have The Occupation on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. And on March 8th, we have Devil May Cry 5 on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Imagine a world where one of the 5 AAA games that all came out on the same fucking day in February. Imagine if just one of them had come out this week.
Yeah.
Probably would have got a lot
It's
more
going to be good for
attention.
Dead or Alive 5, I mean.
Like, imagine. Like, if
Devil May Cry.
Metro or Jump Force or Far Cry or Anthem had come out this week. Would have had a lot more breathing room. And a lot more space. And some of these games haven't done well. There was a story. I know we don't do UK sales charts because they only track physical.
Yeah.
But it's interesting nonetheless. Apparently, Anthem sales are physical UK sales are 50% lower than Mass Effect Andromeda.
Wow.
Yeah, which, unless digital's making up the shortfall and then some, it's definitely not going to hit 6 million copies by the end of the financial year.
Yeah. I was just thinking there's like Mass Effect Andromeda, there was quite a bit of hype for a Mass Effect game.
I mean, it was a Mass Effect game, right? Like,
yeah. Whereas Anthem doesn't have any pedigree behind it.
100%. It's got BioWare, but that's it, really. And a massive marketing push. But, yeah, no, it's interesting, because it's interesting in the context of it was supposed to... it has to sell 6 million units in 6 weeks. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that when the NPD comes out in mid-March to see how it's faring. That's going to do it for whatever episode of the Words Back Gamescast I said this was. 148?
Uh-huh.
It's almost 150. I don't know what to do. We need to do something for 150 because that's an actual milestone.
Yeah, get another co-host.
Get another co-host. No, I like the dynamic the two of us have, the back and forth. You get me. You let me ramble on about Death Stranding being Silent Hills for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you only mock me about it once we stop recording. Look, right, apart from that one thing, it was kind of a slow news week, okay?
Yeah.
Apart from that one major incident. Say bye, Keith.
Bye, Keith.